We are here with our top 10 games of 2023. All four of us are here. Jeremy, Emily, me, and Ryan. We're going to see how much overlap we have. We're going to see how many surprises we have. Any bets right now who's going to have the most overlap? Because I think it's going to be me and
in the
Emily.
middle here.
Yeah, probably.
And I think, as always, Jeremy's going to be the outlier with some games that we're like going, what? And then by the time he's done, we're going to be like, I've got to play that game.
Yeah.
That happens every year.
And Ryan's going to be Marvel this and Marvel that.
No, not this year. Not this year.
Yep.
Ryan's going to be very sad. Ryan has already been very upset.
I will say, before we get started, that this was a great year for gaming. I don't know if it was because a lot of things from the pandemic got pushed back, but just like this year period, so many great games. Yeah, as I was making this list and trying to cut it down, I have never felt that pain
Real
in
tears
previous
streaming
years.
down his
Was he
face.
was crying. We had to console him before we started
A little bit,
recording.
but
He
it
might
just-
tear up while we're
We got
doing
tissues
this.
on the ready.
Going back and forth and like trying to narrow down the 10 games that I felt like were my favorite or
Yeah.
like the games I enjoyed the most. They left a couple on the cutting room floor that I would have sworn to you all year long
Yeah,
that would have been my top 10 games, and it felt so hard.
yeah. We might
cutting those
come.
games
We
out.
might come back with another video with
Honorable
some of those
mentions.
honorable mentions. Maybe some other ones. Another one I want to point out, or another category of game, is the blind spots that we have for
Yeah.
games that we didn't play. You know, there's a handful of games I won't mention here that I haven't played that I wanted to play in the last few weeks just to get a taste of it to see if it was going to enter. I didn't get around to. So this might be our first evolving list. We might come back in 2024 and go, you know what? Maybe this would have
I mean,
been.
we can only play so many games a year. We
That's
we
true.
can't play every possible game, and of course, like there's some stuff like Lorcana was a big release this year. And I think
So
it's
he's already starting his
No,
honorable
I'm not.
mentions.
I'm
This
just
is,
saying, like,
this is how Ryan
Already
works.
started.
There's
He's
games
like,
like
there's
that.
games like this and like this. And let me give you my top 10 games
I'll
like
say
that.
too, like games that came out in 2022 that we didn't get to play even in 2022 that we
Yes.
explored in 2023. So
a lot of 2020s there.
yeah, there's just a lot of. It was a tough year to make. I'm happy with the list that I came up with.
You
Well,
seem very
Very
happy.
happy with my top 10.
I, for one, am very glad that you're happy because you're starting this whole thing
okay.
with your number 10.
All right, my number 10 is a game called Freelancers from Plaid Hat. This is a
Wow.
cooperative role-playing type game. This was I played it. I was a little skeptical. Everybody loved this at Gen Con, and I got the chance to play it and had an absolute blast. We played through a whole campaign. There's like multiple campaigns in the box. This was one of the most fun experiences I've had ever playing a cooperative game because it's just pure fun. It's a completely like app controlled game. So a lot like Forgotten Waters last year, but this comes with a sense of humor that is almost unparalleled in a board game. We were cracking up like every little thing that happened. There's so many little inside jokes and so many little references and like bits of humor. It's all completely voice acted by this guy. And like the voice
This
acting
guy.
is phenomenal. He's
Some guy.
He's a famous voice actor. Sorry that I can't remember. But he's hilarious. He does all the voices of the characters. But it takes place in this like crazy world, and like everything that you think is true is like a little twist. Like we're all picking our character classes at the beginning, and like one guy's the gunslinger and I'm the spell sword. And it turns out as we're reading his backstory that like one day he picked up a gun and threw it at somebody, and now for the rest of his career he's slinging guns at people. And he's a gunslinger. He has a box of guns that he carries around.
What?
And like I'm a spell sword. My character's really good at spelling the word sword. He's just really good at
Oh,
spelling.
that's funny.
Are those examples
so-
of the humor?
Those are exactly
Okay.
which whatever. It might not work for you, but it's funny. I mean, you can laugh and you know it's maybe a little juvenile, but like it plays with your expectations of what you think is going on in a fantasy game. And the story that we went on for the first adventure was absolutely just an absolute blast to play.
Sounds cool.
So
I'm just kind of like on that one. I mean, kind of like I was walking past it at PAX U and I was thinking to myself like, man, it'd be nice to. I just want to see it. Maybe I should have just demoed it.
you should have just played. You got to play it once.
I have to demo that one
Yeah.
before I try it.
All right. So my number 10 doesn't have all that going on. My number 10 is World Wonders from Arcane Wonders.
Ah.
This is a game that we'd heard a lot about at Gen Con. It sold out crazily at Gen Con. And then I actually heard some things where people were like, it didn't land with me. I bought it, then I sold it that same day, stuff like that. We finally got it around to the table, and I really enjoyed it. It's a simple little experience. I think it's a great gateway level game to get all sorts of people to the table. I don't know. Now, is it the game that for enthusiast gamers are going to keep going back to? Probably not. But it's a game I'm going to be able to use with my friends, my family, outside of this group a lot. And I'll get a lot of those initial plays with those people.
Yeah.
So I'll be the one sort of advocating this game. But it won't really be a game that I play for myself necessarily. But it was really good.
It was
and
fun.
the production value
I was
is
going to
awesome.
say, the table presence was really cool, right? That's what I remember us talking about. We were like, oh, this is actually, it looks really cool. Like, Alicia walked past as we were
Yeah.
ending, and she was like, oh, what are you guys doing? And that's the kind of game you like to get to the table,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially with, like, newbies, to be like, hey, look, this looks interesting, and it actually is interesting and fun to play together.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It looks interesting, and it is interesting. It's not maybe groundbreaking, but it's like clever enough to, I think, even give enthusiast gamers some fun. So yeah, World Wonders is my number 9.
Nice. Number 10.
10.
Yeah, number 10. Spoiler alert, it's also my number 9.
Oh, Lord.
My number 10 this year is, first of all, I do have to make a note that
Uh-oh.
one game that will not be on my list this year, because they've told me I can't keep having it on my list every single year, but it is on many lists this year, is Earth.
Yeah.
It's a great game. Not on my list.
It's been on
because it's been on my list
It's been on
multiple years
maybe
already.
4 of Emily's lists over the last 3 years.
So that is my not number 10. My number 10 is The Veil of Eternity. So The Veil of Eternity is one we just played recently, but I really enjoyed it. So one theme you guys might notice too on my list this year has been tableau builders. And
Spoiler
engine
alert.
Builders. I love tableau builders, and I love just the idea of like drafting cards and being able to come up with these combos that end up really making big moves. What I really enjoyed about my plays with it is that this game is a race to 60 points, right? Which is like, okay, not that many points. I've had combos where in one turn I've gotten 30 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is insane. You're like, everyone's like, oh, don't worry about her. She's losing. It's not a big deal. And then all of a sudden you go from the end to, ba-da-boom, I'm almost there. I'm almost going to win the game.
Yeah.
And I love that tension that it brings. It has a really cool theme. And I just thought it played really fast. I've played it at 2, at 3, and it felt good either way. So
So you've played it since we played it?
I did play
think?
it,
Oh,
yes.
Excellent,
I
excellent.
did.
Did you
So I
bring
played
it back
that
is
one.
I
my
did.
big
It's
question.
right there.
Okay,
It's
okay.
there. Yeah, I have to check that out because
You're gonna
Yeah,
like
Jeremy,
it.
you
You're
gotta
gonna
play
like
it. It might end up being one of your blind
I tried.
spots.
I tried to get it at Essen every day, and that one in Jekyll Hyde, gone every day.
Oh.
Yeah, I even arrived 2 hours early. Still didn't get it.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was those two were so hot. They were so hot. So my number 10 is a very small game. Speaking of Essen, I've been waiting a little bit more than a year for this game. I didn't think it was actually going to come out. And they warned me that it was going to be there, and I found it at a tiny, tiny booth. It is called Violet and the Grumpy Missy. Violet and the Grumpy Missy.
Oh, yeah. He told me about this earlier. You're
So-
going to dig this, I think.
So it's a 2-player game, and you are a girl trying to get to your troll buddy
Uh-huh.
in the dark, and you're going through this forest with a lantern. But really what the game is a trick-taking game where you are drafting cards that have abilities on them, but they're also playing for tricks, for trump
Yes,
suits and
yeah.
stuff like that. But depending on how the trick is won, you're going to move forward, you're going to get abilities, you're going to draft cards a certain way, and then when you're in certain areas, the trump changes because of where you are, going
Ooh.
closer to the light, going closer to the dark. But even more interesting is the Nissi, the evil force that's there. When they get tricks, they hold them and they put them in the piles. And when you get a third trick, the difference in the cards in that trick will affect the game as well.
Oh, interesting.
So it's got some little things where she gets afraid, he gets abilities. When you get certain places, you have abilities, and there's like this candle mechanic that goes on. It's a very, very interesting game. I played it with the designer. I was just like, this is a special game.
What's it
And
called again?
It's called Violet and the Grumpy Nissi.
Wow.
It gets the award for the wildest name of
The
the
most
I
year.
do
interesting
think
Sure.
Jeremy's
title on our
making it
list,
up,
for
so.
sure.
Yeah.
So we are now to the number
Yeah,
9,
now-
starting
number
with...
nine. Well, my number 9 is Veil of Eternity as well. This
Oh,
is one
wow.
that I've been playing a lot. I got to take it to PAX and play a lot. What Emily said is exactly right. But for me now, I've played this game a ton of times. Like this might end up being my most played game of the year. And I've seen all of the cards now. I've played enough times that every card has come up. I know what all the cards are. But I'm still discovering new combos and
Yes.
new ways to score points. And I'm seeing other players do things where I'm like, oh, I never even thought about comboing those cards
Uh-huh.
in that way. to like, discard a card from your hand and get a bunch of points and then find a way to return it to your hand. We
Uh-huh.
had one guy that was doing that every single turn and get like 10 points around. And so it is fun. It is kind of a race game, but it's not really. Like, I don't like race games where it's like you get 60 points and you win. So it ends when somebody hits 60 points, but you still get to finish your turn.
That's true.
And you still get to fire off all the stuff that happens in between rounds.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know, spoiler, this is probably going to be on David's list, so I'm not going to go
Maybe.
on about it. But that's my favorite
I
part.
hated it.
Is that
Stop.
you can build combo, you can build things that, a lot of cards that give instant effects, or you can build into like a tableau that triggers every round. And the fact that you can kind of mix and match those and create your own custom like tableau feels really good. And that every experience has been very satisfying for me.
Yeah, it is a satisfying game. Also on BGA in alpha right
Yeah.
now, so it's
Oh,
starting to
that's
get
exciting.
more and more plays online as well. Well, my number 9 is a tableau builder
What?
that released this year, and it's Rats of Wistar from Cranio
Oh,
Creations.
Really?
Yeah,
That made it.
I rope-a-dope.
There's some tableau building in Rats of Wistar for sure.
Oh yeah,
There
100%.
definitely is.
It's a big part of that game.
Yeah.
And Rats of Wistar has a lot more going on than that.
Mhm.
There's a board that has a really interesting worker mechanic placement, and that's the thing that I wanted to focus on most because, like Emily, this has been the year of tableau builders.
It has.
So I don't want to focus on that element, but it must be said, it's got a lot of tableau building. But the worker placement, you're placing these worker mice out there, but you have other mice, or rats rather, that are supporting their power. So you're going to like group those rats around this sort of like wheel that rotates with all of the actions. And those are the power to which you take the actions associated with them. Not to mention that wheel turns.
Mm-hmm.
There's that, and that feeds all of the actions you want to take to do all of the other things in the game. And there is a lot to the all of the other things, including exploring this giant house, going on missions, doing things on your player board, getting more of those sort of supporting rats out.
Yeah, think about classic Euro. You're like getting rooms, putting people in rooms,
Yeah.
exploring things, like all your
In-game
classic
scoring
Euro things.
tiles,
Yes,
getting
exactly.
cards to do various things.
And the tableau building, which can be really, really interesting.
Mhm.
And some people are much better at that than others. But that is my number 9, Rats of Wistar.
I'm a little upset that that's your number 9, but it's okay, David.
I know you were pretty hot on
Oh, you wanted it to be higher.
We'll see,
Oh, okay.
David.
it.
My number 9, though, is also a tableau builder,
Wow, here we go.
but it's not Veil of Eternity because I already said that. So it's Evenfall.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
I really
Mhm.
liked Evenfall. And the reason that it edged its way past Veil of Eternity for me was that I really liked the efficiency of it, in that it was also like worker placement. You could put your workers on your cards and also in the middle. And there was a lot of hard decisions you had to make about timing and when to play things.
Yeah.
It's not like the resource management of it comes across as the biggest thing going on. But once you really get down to it, you start feeling like, oh shoot, should I use my resources to buy this card or to take that action or to do this? And the timing really matters, and I want to make sure I do it before he does and before the round ends. What should I do?
Well, and all the fact that the cards are multi-use, so you don't have to
Yes.
decide when to play them, but also how to use each
Yeah.
card.
Yes.
That's tough.
And then you have your own like faction ability. And so I remember my faction ability had something to do with discarding cards for resources as well, like at a better rate.
Yes, we all remember you using that power.
So mine were even more like,
Yeah.
these cards are just like everything to me. I can make them do anything I want in this
These
game.
cards are everything.
So I really like that game. I'd love to keep playing it too and play with the other abilities because I think there's a lot of replayability there. And unlike Veil of Eternity, I haven't seen all the cards.
Yeah,
So I
there's a
know
lot.
there's a lot more to it still. And because they're multi-purpose too, there's so much going on in each
Yeah.
card that I just see a lot more plays available for that game.
Just
Yeah,
the
for
worker
sure.
placement part of that game is like it's a lot,
cool.
especially in the beginning when
Yeah.
you're like, man, I only have 4 guys.
I
You know,
know.
it's
Yeah,
like,
that worker placement is tight.
It's
at
very
first.
tight.
So
It's like playing
tight.
Lost Ruins of Arnak for the first time. It's like I only get 2 of these. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like-
But that's how you know it's good, right?
Right?
It's good
It's
worker
like
placement if you're
the
like,
weight
"Dang
of
it."
choice, right? The weight of
Yes.
choice. So number 9 is a game that I actually got at the end, like right before this, not too long ago, like a couple weeks back, and I just played it and played it and played it, and I was like, I guess this is one of the best games I played this year. It's called Raising Robots.
Raisin
Oh,
Robots.
yeah, that
Oh,
looks.
I've
that's-
heard really good
yeah.
things.
That's
I
what I've
haven't
been wanting
played
to
it.
play.
It's just fun. Like it's so fun. You are these like little scientist kids or whatnot, and you're building these robots, and they have like 16 different ones that have different abilities. You put it on the board, and then you have all these different like departments, and some of them you build. you have like an exchange rate thing. Some of them you're trying to unlock different parts and different sections, because as you build the robots and you put them on there, each column for each one of the sections can hold different robot types. And then you can, once you fire off one thing, you can fire off all the robots in that row. So you talk about Tableau and stuff, like this one is like, it is so rewarding. It's so rewarding. But one of the really catchy systems to this is how you set up the energy for the round. So you have these cards. That you're going to flip over that will determine, like you'll have a deck of cards that has energy on it. You flip those over, but then you have the two types of things you're going to invest the most in. And everybody's going to flip those cards over at once. And depending on what they give, you contribute energy to the main board. And that tells us the power of the actions for the round. So there's a little bit of, it's just a little bit of like, hey, people are invested in this, maybe a little talking across the table.
See, a little
negotiation across the table. It's like, hey, I want to build cards. You want to build cards.
We should do it together.
Right. Or not, right? And it's just a really interesting system that I think people are sleeping on that game. And it's a high quality game. It's like one of those types of games where it's high quality and not like a high price.
Oh, that's nice.
So I think it's like $50, and even the $50 version is like really well done.
Nice.
So yeah, that was a very surprising game. That's probably
it's very surprising to me. I have not heard the game before.
Yeah, and it's by somebody from Wisconsin. Hello, Wisconsin.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, Ryan, we're down to number 8.
Number 8 for me is Dune Imperium Uprising, which probably could have been higher on my list, but there's a lot of similarities between Dune Imperium Uprising and regular Dune Imperium, which is a game that I love. Yeah. However, I do think Dune Imperium Uprising brings enough new to the game that you're going to want to play this. In a lot of ways, it is a more challenging game. It is I would say, harder game to make things happen. You have to think about the board state a little different, and you have to earn your points in very different ways. They took a lot of feedback from Dune Imperium. Like in Dune Imperium, all you want to do is like go up those guild tracks, and that's easy points. And they've made it very difficult to go up the guild tracks in Dune Imperium Uprising, and the rewards for going up those guild tracks, the actions are not as good. You really need to go out to the board a lot more. So they've kind of balanced the game, I would say, in a better way. But then they've given like you these spies that you can interact with the board with. You can put spies down in certain locations that allow you to do special things in those locations with those spies, which is really cool. You have the sandworms now that add to your combat. And the fact that you can take Dune Imperium Uprising and mix it with the expansions for the original game. So you can use the Rise of Ix and the Immortality expansions with this. It's really smart how they did that. But the game, it feels much more balanced. It really does require you to do some of the things they wanted you to do in the first Dune Imperium. I don't think you can win this game. It's harder to win this game without putting it all in on combat.
Yeah.
Some of the combat rewards are so much better. Some of the influence cards or whatever they're called are so much better. I think this is just a much better Dune. Now, if you know the base game, you already know this game. So like if this had been brand new for me, like all brand new, it probably would have been higher. But still, it's a solid entry.
But does it replace Dune Imperium for you?
Yeah, I think I still will go back and forth, kind of like with Clank, and that's kind of one thing they said that you can use any of the Clank boards. Now you can use any of the Dune Imperium boards. If I'm teaching the game to a brand new player, I don't know if I would necessarily teach Uprising first, just because it does feel like you have to be a little trickier. You have to plan a little bit more ahead.
So you have to know what's going to happen, generally
right,
speaking.
because you can't just count on shooting up those guild tracks to like score your points. Because it's a lot harder to do that.
Well, I haven't played that one yet, but I think I would like it. Although I don't like the conflict part. That's definitely me when I play Dune Imperium. It's like, conflict. I don't need conflict.
Sounds like it's emphasizing that.
But they've also made the rewards better for like even some of the second, and you even get into some of you're like, I really want the second place reward. I don't even want to win this fight because that second place reward is so juicy. So it doesn't feel so bad to lose. Yeah.
All right. Well, mine is a little less conflict oriented, and it's already been mentioned, so I won't spend too much time. But my number 8 is Evenfall.
Yay!
Again, another tableau builder. I had a lot of fun with this. The one thing I would say about this is when I played this I thought was going to be much higher on my list this year. And it's shocking how many games I've played since Essen that have flooded my top 10 and really made me rethink this. And even some of the games that released at the same time and my attitude towards those. But Evenfall is a great tableau builder. I do like how it mixes the worker placement. the star of the show is those faction powers. Like they are so different. Like I don't know if this game is going to go to the point where it gets expansions, but like there's just 4. I would love to see more of that because the factions in the game are just like, wait, you get to do what? It really has that feeling for sure. And all of them feel significant.
Yes.
I don't think there's any one where you're like, oh, well, you got that one, you've got the leg up, because some of the other ones are just as good, just in different ways.
Yeah.
Well, my number 8 is one that hasn't been mentioned yet, and it also is not as recent. So, but it still made the list.
Not Earth, right?
It's not
Okay.
Earth, but it is Scholars of the South Tigris.
Yeah.
So we played this at the beginning of the year, and so it's kind of hard when you play something so early on that you're like, is it as good as the ones I'm playing now? But this one was good enough that it stayed on, right?
Yeah.
That it was like, yes, I remember my experiences. I really enjoyed them. So it's part of the South Tigris series, and what I really liked about it is, so in this one we're actually translating like different books, which to me is a super cool theme.
Yeah.
Like I really like the idea of you're actually taking things from one language and transcribing it back and back into its original language, and it ties the theme in with the different actions we're doing, but we're also doing it through colored dice, which I love, and tons of mitigation and lots of flexibility, but also still very, very tight and, like you were saying, tough decision making. So this was a hevier one. We played it many times at the beginning of the year, and it's really stuck with me as one that
I
just
can't
want
wait
to
to
get back.
play my copy again. Because I did have fond memories of it. I was going to try to play it again to make sure it like stuck with me.
Oh, it's
But
stuck with me.
I was just like, I remember when I played it earlier this year, I'm like, this is probably one of the best games I played this year. There's a couple other games like that I just played one time and I didn't feel justice to put it on here. But
It's
And,
hard.
and it is recent for everyone else because it
right,
is
because
now
everybody's just
delivering.
getting it.
True.
But the prototype that we had was like,
Was-
it was
Yeah.
like,
it was
great.
it was like a
Yeah.
finished
Okay, I
copy.
know what this game is. So, yeah. My number 8, I just switched up in my mind. So
Of
there it
course.
is.
Wow, that
Every
is classic
year.
Jeremy.
Classic Jeremy.
Oh, I
for
just
sure.
said things, so.
I just said this is
Scholars
number
of the
8.
South Tigers.
Scholars of the South Tigers. Hey! Hey, executive decision in here. No, apiary. is
Yeah.
number
Ah,
8, yeah.
That wasn't on your list before?
Well, there were some negotiations in my mind, and I decided to change this
The
up.
council has decreed.
The council-
Yeah,
number
we're gonna have
8
to look at his
apiary.
paper
No.
when it's all said and
No,
done.
no.
He might say apiary
No.
again.
No, yeah, I know I might. So please. So aviary, game that I was at Essen, didn't even think about, but I did get my hands on a copy at Essen. I didn't know what to think about it. Stonemaier games in typically are games that I own and get rid of right away. They don't have a high shelf life for me. But this year, a lot different. Expeditions, not on my top 10, but very good game. That will probably show up on my solo top 10, but we'll get into that later. This one, though, it really stuck with me for multiplayer and solo, which is a really good combination for me. I like simplicity. I like my workers getting bumped and moving them. But I like games where there's timing. I like timing.
Yes. Yeah.
And I also, what people may not like that are Euro gamers, they don't like their workers to be messed with. I like messing with other people's time.
He does.
So it's like sometimes I like to muck it up a little bit. Well, this game is made that way.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you bump me. Well, do you want to bump me? Because if I have a 4 and I go here,
Yeah.
haha,
Yeah.
right? So, or it's like, hey, why don't we both stick here so we can make this more powerful? We get this stuff cheap.
Well, and
it's got those moments,
Yeah.
and I enjoy that level of interaction. It's a very interactive game, and it can get people up in their feelings about that. Or why is nobody interacting with me?
Yes.
So there's that, and there's that timing. So I like all 3 of those, like that moment in there. There are some cards in there that I'm a little worried about the balance of that, but whatever. I just have a fun time.
Yeah.
And it's a player
Yeah.
controlled ending, right? Too. So
And
it's
it's player
like,
control. Yeah.
oh my God, are you gonna
Yeah.
end it, or do we have a little bit of time?
That game is not above flaws. It's got some in there, but typically, like, it's just a fun experience. Like, I'm not. Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's just fun.
Is this 7?
It is
7.
This
7.
is 7. My 7 is Voidfall from Mind Clash Games. This is
Oh.
a giant sci-fi epic 4X style kind of game, but it is super, super sleek. Everything about this game, from the presentation to the gameplay, is very streamlined, very fun. It looks phenomenal on the table. It's got a very striking look with like the void corruption on the board and your big fleets moving around. But what it does, it's so it's the best version of this type of game that I've ever played. I'll say that. It brings in
Wow.
a lot of these Euro mechanics. You're taking over the control of these different areas, and you're getting these dice, and you're taking these dice up to get resources, and you're producing resources. But it's all driven by action cards, and you're playing these action cards. And every faction, and there's a ton of different factions. Every faction has their own unique abilities, their own unique starting setup, and even some of their own unique cards if you use the advanced mode. And you're doing these different actions. There's tracks to move up. You're just getting things all the time. You're flipping dice up. You're rotating dials as you get more resources. Like, you're always doing something, and you're learning these new technologies, and you're racing to kind of spread out the board and take special zones and like build defenses. Like, it's so cool and a ton of fun to play. And the thing that I really want to touch on that sold this game to me is the way scoring works. And that you're getting these cards, and every round you can put cards underneath your board, and then you score all of your cards every round. So the cards you get early are going to be scoring multiple times in a row, all the way down to like the end of the game when maybe you get one at the last one. And every faction has their own starting card. Of course, your player board can be corrupted, and you might have to put corruption on some of those. So like there's this whole, just a ton of different systems interlocking. It's definitely a heavy game, but it is a blast. I played this and got destroyed the first time, but I was hooked. And we went back and we've played it multiple times since. It's just one that I will always,
Have you played it?
I have not played it.
I will always
know,
try to get it
crazy.
to the table. Now, there is definitely a PvP element to it. It is still a 4X. You are still like fighting other players, but I like that it's not always beneficial to do so. In fact, sometimes it can really hurt you. So people have to really think twice before just like trying to wipe you off the board, which is like my big Twilight Imperium complaint.
So I've heard this game is really great solo. I have not played it in time, although I did get the box. I did get that one in Septima, which I'll probably be talking about these games a little bit later on. But I can confirm that box is huge because my wife, God love her, she actually picked up that box with Voidfall and Septima in it. She was like, "What is this?" So I can confirm, and I've seen pictures on Facebook of Voidfall on a table, and it will test your table. Like
I will, but it looks
it
so
will test
cool.
your table. So if you're more than 2 players, I think you're gonna need a bigger table.
Yeah, we played with 4.
You're gonna need a
we
bigger
played with
table.
4. It took up a pretty big table
Yeah.
space.
Well, you do not need a big table to play my next game. My next game is a 2-player game, and probably, arguably, the 2-player game of 2023, and that is Sky Team.
Yep.
Nice.
Sky Team came out at Gen Con. We were lucky enough to, in fact, Jeremy and I
played at
demoed it
Gamma.
at Gamma,
Yeah, the little program.
and then we got a copy just before, but it was probably one of, if not, one of the top sellout games of Gen Con.
Yeah.
This is a 2-player game where one person's a pilot, the other person's a co-pilot. You can't talk to each other, which is where the theme might fall apart a little bit.
Well, you can
But
talk to each other before you
that's
roll.
true.
Yes.
So
You just
there
can't-
is communication, just not when you're actually doing things.
Yes, so settle down in the comments if you have a problem with that. But you're rolling up these dice and then using those dice, placing them on this sort of, console to do all the different things. Clear the traffic in front of you, make sure the plane is not tilted. And there's all these scenarios that add even more mechanisms to that to make it harder and harder and harder. I've not played this game with anyone who didn't enjoy it. And you can take this game to a non-gamer, even though there's a fair amount going on, it's not hard to teach. It's cooperative, so you can kind of like help them along without talking to each other. And everyone relates to it because the idea is landing a plane. So everyone, even though they haven't landed a plane, if they're not a pilot, you can kind of get the sense of like, okay, we're trying to do this, and we need to do this. So it's not true simulation, obviously, but it's that sort of fulfills that fantasy of like, oh, I'm a pilot and I'm landing a plane, and it does it really, really well.
Yeah, it was great.
I think it just has like a tension to it, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to time
There is.
things perfectly. It just has that right amount of tension and choices. And it also has like this kind of like, ooh, this could be one bad roll set away.
Yes.
As you get those
Always.
coffee tokens, you're trying to you're trying to re-roll, or do you have enough coffee tokens before the last round?
Oh yeah, you got to have
Yeah.
coffee for the
Right.
last round.
And then it's like,
It's a long flight.
Then they have these other mechanics that come later on in the game, which I just won't spoil, that really do add more
more.
spice to
Yeah.
the game. So if you're just thinking like it's going to be the same way every time, oh no, you just landed in Montreal. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about the other one. So it's like, so it does give you like that kind of a feeling of like there's more carrot on the stick. So that's really good.
Yeah, I really like
Yeah.
this one too, and for that reason, it is also my number 7.
Oh, wow,
is
there we
Sky
go.
Team.
All
Talk about
all right,
overlap.
All right. All right.
But yeah, no, for all the same reasons we've been saying, right? And to your point, it's very accessible. So
Yeah.
I played with my mom, and we played that first scenario, I think like 3 times
Yeah.
back to back. So we could really feel ready
Uh-huh.
for it and like switch places. One time I was the pilot, one time I was the co-pilot. And then I played with my sister, and we were like, okay, let's go to the next scenario right away. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So it really gives you those options and variety. And like you said, at Gen Con, I saw this constantly being demoed.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
There's never a free demo space, and everyone's always hovered around them. I've seen people play through the whole campaign. It's, I think, definitely the top 2-player game this year.
Also on BGA. So
Yes,
that's
Oh.
true.
it is
Yeah.
also on BGA. Jeremy, what's
Oh.
your number
That's good to
7?
hear, even though I don't get on BGA as much as I should. Number 7 is Robot Quest Arena.
Okay,
So-
yeah.
I love Battle of the Robots. So,
We got a robot theme to Jeremy's list this year.
so
Yeah.
I like this is a game that came out of nowhere. It's got these big chunky robot minis on there, and it's a deck building game where you are facing off as robots, battling each other. Your kids at, like, let's say a robot competition. I don't know if that's necessarily a theme, but you're kind of building this board however you want. It's got different traps. It's got different like mechanics that are added to it. So you have ones, you're basically trying to get points. You get points from hitting each other,
Mhm.
and you get points for being in the center. So you're trying to kind of build up your deck with these different kits and things like that. And there are actually like 4 or 5 different kits you can add on top of the base stuff. So it's like you can make this kind of pretty complicated game with like defender shields and reactions, and you can put events in the game. So each time you take a round, you do another event. Or you can do things like add gumball machines. So when you hit the gumball machine, points go flying everywhere, and everyone has to go get them. So like when you hit people, the cool part about it is if you're playing with, like, let's say kids, when you get destroyed or you're hit, it's almost like Mega Man, where it's like you blow up, but then you like come back.
Right.
Like, you,
Yeah,
like,
like
Okay.
respawn.
so it's
No
like you
player
go back in,
elimination.
but
Yeah.
the points, the persons get points for like knocking
Sure.
you out.
Yeah.
You get like 2 extra points for knocking the person out. You get their piece. So it's still it gives people like it kind of keeps you involved in the game, and it moves it
Mhm.
along as well. So as you take people out, it's like it's not so damaging,
Sure.
and everybody has their cool little powers as well. It feels good to like bump 2 people into each other or like knock them into a wall. It's super fun, and I finally got my son to play it last time at game night, and he was like, "Let me play." He just was in robotics, and he beat all of us. His
I
first
love
game.
it. I love it.
It was really
Yeah,
fun.
it is a
That's so
cool sort of
Yeah.
intro to deck building. We've played a few games like that this year, but this one's really good because it is very engaging
It is
for kids.
very engaging, and I would say for family gamers, like this is like a home run. Once they see those little chunky guys, they're going to be really
Yeah,
excited.
the production is
The
nice.
production
And
is-
that
yeah.
point you made about the players getting knocked out.
Yeah,
It does that so well because it also, unlike a lot of games, family games of the past, where it was felt
Just
very
lose.
punishing
You're just
and
out.
you're just out,
you're out.
you just respawn. So it helps teach kids
Yeah.
too to just kind of like pick themselves back up and get going
Resilience.
again.
If you have a
Yes.
if you have a cool deck, so like if you have a cool deck, you come back in the game, you could shoot something that shoots 2 squares away and hits everybody.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
You know, it's just like you just get to have fun.
That's
Yeah.
what you
And
want in
it's
a game.
done in like 45 minutes. Like it's done. It's like one of those games that can really potentially clean up at your family night.
Yeah,
Nice.
very good game.
All right, number 6. Number 6 for me is Scythe Expeditions. I am
Wow.
very glad this game came out. I'm very glad it gave me a reason to return to Scythe because that is a world that I love, but I didn't necessarily love the game Scythe. So being able to play a different style game in that same world with that same aesthetic really worked for me. And what you're doing in this game, being an expeditions game, works a lot better than Conflict for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
At least being able to like go around and explore these tiles and flipping tiles and like getting resources and workers and all this stuff. But where this game really shines for me is this is kind of an interesting tableau builder. We're back to tableau builders in 2023, but it's super interesting
Yeah.
because you have a hand on one side of your board and your tableau on the other side of the board. But as you move cards from your hand to your tableau, they become kind of like actions and you can put workers on them, and they all do a huge variety of different things, like all the things you'd expect from a game like this. You're playing cards. Some of them give you bonuses out on the board. Some of them return things to your hand to give you more resources. But at certain points in the game, you're going to have to refresh, and your entire tableau goes back to your hand effectively. But all the cards that you get as you're playing go into your hand. So like early on, your tableau might reach like 3 or 4 cards, and then you refresh. And then the next time it could reach like 8 or 9. and then you refresh, and then you're pushing to like 10 or 12. And so it's a really cool ebb and flow of building out that tableau every time. And like by the third or fourth time you run your tableau, you've got it down. You're like, if I play this card, then this card, then this card, I can really, get a lot of stuff or fight corruption or find a lot of ways to earn victory points or those stars or whatever you would claim, the achievements. So I think it was a very, very satisfying game.
Yeah.
And it's still like, it let me love Scythe, which is something I really like.
Yeah,
as well.
that setting is really popular
Yeah.
with a lot of people, and I agree. I was not a huge fan of Scythe, but Expeditions, the biggest thing you touched on is the exploration. That's very satisfying to me in terms of going out on the board, flipping tiles, finding out where the actions are that you want to take. And yeah, it kind of doesn't redefine's probably a strong term, but it's a tableau builder, but kind of a weird tableau builder.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deck builder, but kind of a weird deck builder.
It's a little bit of both.
It's different in a lot of ways, but yeah, it was a really good game this year.
So number 6.
It is not my number 6, though. My number 6 is a much smaller game, also a tableau builder. In fact, this is a very limited tableau builder. You can only put 8 cards in your tableau.
Okay, yeah.
It is Far Away. This is a game that I desperately wanted after I played it. I played this at the World Series of Board Gaming. In fact, the Dice Tower was there, and they had an early copy of it, and I played it with them, loved it. Then I begged Jeremy to bring me one thing back from Essen, and he did. He succeeded. He brought me a copy of Far Away. You're playing cards into a tableau one at a time until everyone has 8 cards. There's a little bit more to it. The big hook here is that once you're done and the game is over, you're going to be flipping all those cards face down and then revealing them in reverse order to score them. So all the cards that have scoring on them won't benefit from all of the other tags and whatnot that you need on your cards to score them. So it really messes with your mind.
Tableau builder,
Kind of.
Really?
Also a tableau builder, but a weird tableau builder.
Well, usually because like when you're playing anything, and it almost has engine builder feels of like
It does have
this
engine
card
builder feels.
generates this, which this other card needs. But yeah, having to play that backwards.
You're
that
like,
is such a mind. It's a
It
mind
messes
bender.
with. I've not met anyone who wasn't at least on their first play having to go. Wait a minute.
and well, just when you think you've got it, you're like halfway through, you're like, oh wait, no, I forgot the red, and now it's not going to score the 15. Oh god.
And then, but if you find that out midway through the game, you're like, then you're on the hunt to
yes,
see if you can get those other tags so that is not a lost cause.
yes.
But it's a really interesting game. This is a very simple game. It's a very, in my opinion, it's a very elegant design, and it does something new and different. And that's definitely the new different aspect is why it finds a place on my list this year.
Yeah, I have it in my backpack. I was going to try to play it at PAX U.
You haven't played it, right?
I haven't played it yet.
We are 100% playing that while you're
We
here.
will. David will make sure.
Yes.
My number 6 is a game. So I was at physical therapy yesterday, a little bit of story time, and she asked me, what game is going to be on your top 10 that's something that even I would like, right? And she knows I play a lot of games. She knows I play a lot of heavier games. And I said, ooh, I have the perfect thing for you. My number 6 is How Dare You.
Oh,
how
yeah.
So
dare you?
this is a great game for anybody. I've played this with people at my work. I've played this with my family. I've played this with my friends. It's just so accessible. We've played it on the channel. We've played it in Chit
Just
Chat.
played it. Just
We
played it.
will be playing again on the channel soon on another episode of Chit Chat.
And it's great. It's just, you're going around saying, how many soccer goals is the world record ever? And I say a number 5. David has to say a higher number 7, and then Ryan has to either
9.
say
No, how dare you?
How dare you? It's so fun getting to look at your boss and go, how dare you? And then if he loses, he gets silly goose points. I just love it. It's super fun to bring out. It's just a little deck of cards, so you can just take it. It's a perfect stocking stuffer.
Yeah, and if of all the times we've talked about this game, every time I feel like there's no way to verbalize how fun this game is. You have to play it because some of the things that we say when we describe it, like there's silly goose points and there's this. Some people will hear that and go, huh?
You know what?
But you've got to play
Like
it.
how
It's a
you
blast.
responded to freelancers?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a
Exactly.
You know
little
what?
silly,
The
but
game
it works.
is one of those like I don't get it. What's this? I don't either. All I know is there's silly gooses on cards. The game is called How Dare You. You say How Dare You. You guessed it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
It's fun. It's
fun.
absolutely fun. Throw it in your rotation of stuff that you play with your family.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have a great time. especially if you let them know you don't have to be knowledgeable in everything.
Right.
No, you don't.
You don't have to be at all. This is
No,
not
it's
Trivial
actually
Pursuit.
more fun when everyone's
actually
not
much more
knowledgeable.
fun.
That's
Yeah.
the best part.
Yeah.
My mom, who doesn't pay attention to anything but TikTok now,
It's
she was just like, "Oh, I can just guess anything." I'm like,
Yes,
"Yeah,
anything.
yeah." She's like, "Okay, let's do it."
And it's not like these are questions where you're gonna just like no one's gonna just know the exact number.
Right.
for
No,
Nobody's
each
it's,
gonna know
part.
it's
So
like wits and wagers in that
you gotta
respect.
guess a little
Yes,
bit. Yeah.
it is very much like that.
Yeah.
My number
6.
6, we did Robot Quest Arena.
He's
Yeah.
gonna say apiary, I guarantee it.
I was about to say apiary again, but it is Art Society. You reminded me just because you said
Oh,
that.
well, we just got that.
Art Society. So this is a game one of the other ones from Essen. Last game on my mind. They handed it to me on the way out of a meeting.
Mhm.
You're like, just play the game. It's really fun. It's beautiful. It's got great components. I'm like, okay, dude. Like, who cares? Like, I understand it's got great components and it's beautiful, beautiful cover, everything. And once you start playing this game, you're like, wow, this actually is a little bit more interesting than I thought. So you're bidding for pieces. With the person who is setting the pieces out can grab whatever they want. So they can grab a 4, an 8, and a 9, and whatever. And that becomes very strategic as the game goes along, because you're like, why are they putting those out there? Because the color of the painting and the shape of the painting matters. Because you're going to be putting it on your board. But you have 20 bidding cards, and you're going to flip those over, and you're going to bid for these pieces. And once you have that bid piece, you're not going to get it back. So you also have that as well going on. But interesting part here is as you place those on, you're going to get points for things that are not matching and matching. There's tiles you get as a reward. There's bonuses for having cards, the tiles in a sight line as well. And the tile that doesn't get chosen contributes to a multiplier at the end of the game. So it's got more going on than you think. It's easy to play, but it's really tricky.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than I thought it would be.
Mhm.
And I played it once. I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad, but it was a little bit after hours there. Then I played it again. I was just like, you know what, this has hit me. And then I played it about 2 weeks ago or so. I was just like, this is a fantastic game. I'm going to keep this one around. Probably going to take it to work. Maybe I'll try it with my buddy. But yeah, I'm going to try this in different circles because it's that fun.
Nice.
Yeah, we just got a copy. I definitely want to try that
Yeah.
now, especially with a bigger group, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
We're down to
All
5.
right, down to 5. The top 5. My number 5 is Witcher: The Old World. This game, I mean, came out really early this year, but it's one that we've gone back to a lot. I've played this game a ton, and it's so much fun. It's this giant Witcher sandbox. You get to kind of create your own story as your own Witcher. It's not based on the show or anything. Like, you're not playing any of those characters. You're playing your own kind of character with one of the different Witcher schools, and you're going around the world. You're fighting monsters. You're having these little narrative cards that you're read out loud and making decisions, and you really do, like, when you're done, you feel like you've crafted your own unique story at the table with like these different moments that are like, oh, I won this fight, or like, you know, you can do PvP and fight the other Witchers, and like, it's great. But what really like cements this game for me is the deck building
I was
element.
going to say.
The deck building is a lot of fun in the way that you're buying cards and then playing cards in this like combo system where every card gets like a little bit of a bonus. You can have some games where you don't build a good deck and you can tell, and then you can have other games where you know you've built like a sweet deck and you're like, yeah, this deck is really going. And I really like that. And there's just like a ton of ways to build out that deck. And then there's a ton of like ways to play this game.
Sure.
There's like advanced modes, there's expansions, there's other boards you could add, there's other decks of cards you can mix in for more stories. There's cooperative modes. I've played through just a ton of this content. Still haven't played through all of it, and I'm still continuing to play it. I have a couple buddies that just really love this game, and we play together. And every experience has just felt very epic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really just feels like you are living in that world of The Witcher, and like I said, crafting your own story.
Yeah, it does
so much fun.
It does a great job of taking a great narrative experience, which usually is the strong suit of a game, but also has mechanics to back it up that make it an actual interesting game, which is kind of a rare thing. But it's a really good one.
Spoilers, it's not on my list, but playing this game was one of my highlights of the year. I
that's
really
awesome.
enjoyed.
We did have a
playing
great
Yeah, we
game.
did.
Alicia, Emily, and Brian, her partner, and I played a game. And it's a hats off to Brian, really.
this. You were gonna say
He is the greatest. If you ever want someone to just come to your game that's narrative and do all the voices, Brian's
he's great at it.
Brian's the
He
guy.
really is.
This is not my number 5, though. My number 5 has been mentioned already. It is the heaviest game I've probably ever put on one of these lists.
Ooh.
Really?
And it may be, for me, my favorite heavy game of all time.
Whoa.
And that is Scholars of
Oh,
the South Tigers.
that
Oh,
makes
wow.
sense. Yeah.
Scholars is a pretty heavy game.
Mhm.
Now, I will say, it doesn't feel heavy, and that is why it's on my list, because the theme wraps the mechanics
Yeah.
up so well that it's so easy to digest what you're doing. You know, we play a lot of heavy games, and some of which are just like this group of all these different things you're doing,
Mhm.
and it doesn't necessarily always come together.
Yeah.
Some do pretty well.
Yep.
This one comes together really, really well in terms of what you're doing. In fact, following the scrolls over to here, then taking to the
Yeah.
translators, translating them, all of that flow makes a lot of sense. And it's probably, aside from some of the more medium weight games, it's probably one of my favorite Garphill games. I still like Raiders a lot, Raiders with all of the expansions, but Scholars is really, really good. I like it quite a bit more than Wayfarers. And of course, we haven't played Inventors yet.
So I think
But-
Inventors might be the best one, but we'll
We'll
see.
see.
We'll see.
They just keep getting heavier and
do.
heavier.
That's good.
Yeah,
for me.
keep
I
pushing
like-
David.
Uh-huh,
He can
do
keep
it.
making them heavier.
Don't. You're making me nervous.
He's getting to a certain level. My number 5 is also one that's been mentioned before, but that should have been higher on the list, and that
Ooh.
is Rats of Vistar. This was a great game. I loved
It
it
is?
so
Yeah.
much. When you said it earlier, that's why I was upset. I was like, "What? That's so low. It should be even higher on your list."
You loved this game.
I
I
loved
won't tell
this
you
game.
that it didn't make it onto my list.
Ryan,
Sorry.
what are you guys doing? No, I love this game, and I really like what you were talking about, David, where the workers have two different powers that it's doing the action depending on where you're placing your workers, and you can really get into a tough spot if you end up in places where you're like, oh shoot, I could go there, but I have no rats there, so I'm not going to do it to any power, but I am going to get to at least do a little something, but I still want to move my rats so that I'm set
Yeah.
up for next round. And you're just thinking on so many different levels with all the things you love about a Euro going on underneath that. And to your point too, it's a tableau builder. So if you can find some good combos to go together,
And you did when we played.
I did. I found some things that were like discounting when you did this, and then every round you'd get that, and then you just put them all together, and then it gets bigger and bigger. And David's looking at me like, "What are you doing? Is it still your turn?"
And it's a
Why-
massive deck of cards, too.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
It
there's
is. It's
so
huge.
many different cards that tableau can be wildly different.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's a game we haven't seen all the cards in, for sure.
No, for sure. And the cards are really cool too. The art is all like the different robotics and stuff you put together as
These adorable
rats.
little
Yeah.
rats.
It's very cool. So there
Yeah.
are times like when it's not my turn, I'm just like looking at all the cards and being like, "What's this cool stuff?" But that's my number 5.
Mine has already been mentioned, and that is Witcher. Witcher.
Oh.
Nice.
Witcher is one of my favorite video games of all time.
Sure.
It's like it means a lot to me. It was a very, very important game, and I have. If you watch some of my videos, you may see a couple hints of what Witcher means to me across my boards and stuff like that, across the area above my head. But when I saw this as a board game, I was really worried about it. I was very, very worried because I don't really get too excited about IP type games, but I give them all a shot, and I'm so glad I gave this one a shot. And they totally deliver with this one. Like, to have a Euro game that's an adventure and it working,
Mm-hmm.
like having a narrative that doesn't feel the same every time, having a mix of monsters and giving that feel of like we're going on adventures to kill these monsters. We're going to investigate on how to beat them and
Yeah.
be better at
Yes.
beating them. Like, they figured that out, the potion thing, like all that stuff's there, and it still adds its own kind of flavor to it. That's a feat. That's
Mhm.
quite the feat, design feat.
Yeah.
You know, every game has its flaws, but I come away with it. And I thought about it at the end of the year, and I probably should be higher, but I was like, wow, they really pulled this off.
It is
They
an
did it.
accomplishment
They
now that
pulled
you
this
mention
off.
it.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a great
just
way of
quite
looking at it.
I was just like, damn, they actually pulled this out. How you feel great, greatness or not. But you can look at an IP game, and it would be one of the first that I would say, no, they pulled this off, and it's a big game. It's not holding
Yeah.
anything
No,
back.
no,
Yeah, they didn't toy around. It was an ambitious goal, and they achieved it
There's
pretty
one
well.
that one expansion with the sea monster or whatever, like that was too much for me, but at the same time I was like, it still worked. It's still like, wow, they really went there. Like,
yeah, I
they,
like that the Dagon.
right? Yeah. I was just like, they went there. I mean, hey, man, it makes the game long. Some of them make the game long, but
Yes.
it's like if you're in for the adventure,
It's there.
why not?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
just
like
love the
why
little
not?
boats. I love sailing on the little
Right.
boats.
So I just said to myself, like, hey, why am I holding myself back from enjoying this moment? Like, I want to be on the adventure in Witcher. Like, I spent 10 hours a day playing that game, playing the heck out of that game, being lost out of this world and in that world. So yeah, it's a really great game.
Love it.
All right, number 4 for me, already been talked about, but I'm going to talk about Apiary again for a lot of the same reasons that Jeremy mentioned. It is just fun. I just have a lot of fun playing this game. And one thing too, to just add on to what you said, a lot of worker placement games it feels very bad when someone goes to where you want to go. But since Apiary does it in a way that there's no blocking, you can always take an action no matter what. That feels really good. However, that can be a little like too easy. But Apiary really did a good job, I think, of walking that line of like, you can go to anybody's spot, but you are bumping them off and you are increasing the strength.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you're never blocked, you might not want to. You have to kind of balance that thought. And it feels really good when it happens to you. Yeah. And you can get into some chains where like some of these actions can take multiple workers. Mm-hmm. And if you've got 2 there, you know the next 2 people that come to there are bumping you. And if you go there, you can take the action and bump yourself and get a higher value. Every time they hit 4, you get a hibernation bonus. And so you're doing a lot of stuff. And then, of course, like there's all these different tiles that you're using to build out your hive, your space hive, I guess I should say.
Yes.
This takes place in space. But the fact that you have like those instant effects and the fact that you have those, like the farms. I had a special faction that like let me double the bonuses of some of my instant effects.
Yeah, I wasn't there, but I heard about it. Ugh.
You can create like, and there's like 20 something different factions. Yeah. And they all have wildly different powers too, which is something I really like. But the fact that you can look at your faction, you can look at the tiles that are on the board, and you can start creating or seeing these combos in your head of like how to work these. It just leads to a very satisfying
your board starting
experience.
is different as well. Right?
Yeah, you do also have a complete asymmetric start. Like that one that I played last, which let me double my lightning bolt tiles, started with 0 resources.
Oh no!
So you had to like find ways to even earn resources to then go buy those tiles, but I still lost that game. So like even though I was playing a power that felt very broken, Emily won that game by like 5 points.
Of course.
But even though like I was playing a combo that felt really broken, and some people might go, that faction's unbalanced, I still didn't even win with it.
No, I think that game will have some legs on it just because of the buzz. It just feels like
the buzz.
Did you do that on purpose?
No, I didn't.
You should dab after that.
I swear I did. I will not dab. Oh my god. Oh my god. All right, David.
There it is. We got Jeremy to do the Snidely Whiplash.
All right. So yeah, I think that game has some long-term legs. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. Stonemaier basically has 2 really strong titles this year.
Oh yeah.
They got a lot of room in those boxes too for a reason. So they got a lot of room in those boxes. So it sounds like they have long-term plans, and I hope they do. At least we know Expeditions because it's got a lot of room in it. But the Apiary, definitely, I hope they explore more.
Yeah. I feel like you're experiencing what I experience when we do these. We're talking about these games again, and I'm like, oh, let's play Apiary.
Yeah. Let's just play all these games. Spend a whole weekend just playing all these
talking
games.
Talking about them. It's crazy. Yeah. My next one, I'll give you a hint. It starts with a W.
The World Wonders. Oh, wait.
You already said that.
No, and it's not The Witcher. It is Wild Tiled West. This is one of my favorite games of the year. It's probably one of my definitely one of my favorite tile laying games I've played. I think this did a really interesting thing, and I wasn't really attracted to it because I love Wild West or anything like that. But what it does with that, particularly with the variable player boards that you can flip over and you have really interesting powers, I think it does with a tile laying game the right amount of game that you want from a tile laying game. Because a lot of tile laying games are very simplistic and they don't give you a lot. And then some people have designed tile laying games that maybe do a little too much.
Feast for Odin.
Yeah, well, I don't know if there are tiles in the Feast for Odin, but I wouldn't call it a tile laying game. This game does the right amount of stuff, and there's enough stuff to think about as you're playing that makes the puzzle really satisfying. There's been games of this early on that I played where I'm like, oh man, I completely forgot about that aspect of the scoring.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
and someone else did it, and that's what reminded me. And I think that's a good example of a game having just enough to keep you playing the next time and go, oh, if I remember, I'm going to try to do that on my next play. And it does it really, really well. So
Yeah.
that is why it's my number 4. Is that,
Yeah,
is
we're
that
four.
where
We're
Number
on four.
4. My number 4 is a heavier game, but I have a feeling it might be on someone else's list too, and that is Nucleum.
Number 4, I don't know.
I really liked Nucleum. So in this game, we're able to build out power plants, and we're building out power. And so it's one of those classic games. It's like Barrage or
Brass. Have you played either one of those?
I have not played
Me
either of
too.
those.
I know.
And people have told me I'd really like them. Well, I do
You
really like
would.
Nucleum. So
You
I
haven't
like
played
their
Barrage?
baby, I guess. I have
Wow,
not.
you haven't been around Brian. Ryan, you
I
haven't
know.
played Barrage.
I've heard Ryan talk about Barrage endlessly. I
Yes,
have not.
we have.
Anytime.
played
Anytime you
it.
want to play Barrage, anytime.
Please don't encourage it now.
No.
But
Let's talk
if
about
you like that, Nucleum is one to give
Yeah.
a try for sure. So
Yeah.
you each have your own different player boards, your different player powers of things you're doing, and they all come separately. Each game is going to be separate on which different tiles we're trying to go for and which different objectives.
Yeah.
And then also the fact that there's player interaction, right? So like I can use other people's power sources, but I don't necessarily want to because it'd be cheaper if I just use my own. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of stuff with timing. Lots of stuff with like, do I take an action because I want to get more income eventually? Or do I stop taking my actions because I have enough points to score points? I love everything. I love all the stuff that's going on in it. And I was a little worried when I looked at it because I was like, I don't know about the theme. I don't love games where I have to like be building on top of other players. I always worry about that kind of interaction, but it really sung for me.
Yeah, it's but not enough to make it past 4 though.
Not enough to make it past. There's 3 other games that I like
I have
a
to
lot.
say,
just still
I'm
salty.
very anxious. I'm interested and excited to see what your 3, 2, 1 is now.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
just
I
still
thought-
salty that Jeremy and David knocked it off the Essen list. So that's all.
Yes. I
That's
mean,
all.
you should be. I can't believe you guys knocked that off. Seriously? Like, seriously?
I can't remember what knocked it off.
I chose violence that day.
You did. You really
I think it was
did.
apiary actually.
I think it was
Yeah.
Apiary
So-
that knocked it
so
off, so
that's
I'm
a
fine
fair-
It
with
was
that's
that.
actually
fair.
a goal for me to cut that one off.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Really?
I was
The
playing a
worst.
whole strategy that day. I was in a great mood.
All right. Number
Yeah.
4, Jeremy.
I
What do
was
you got?
working the brackets. It's like, when we got done, I was like, how do we get here? We will organize it next year.
Yes.
I was thinking to myself, like, how do we get here? All right. Anyway, some of them are on our top 10, though. This game, another Wisconsin person, this is exciting to talk about, is Distilled.
Still,
Oh.
almost made mine.
He's from
Distilled-
Wisconsin?
Yes,
I
I
didn't
believe so.
know that.
Yes, Dave's from Wisconsin. Yeah, this game really sticks with me because it has a little bit of tightness to it too. Because there's only so much you can do in these 6, 7 rounds that you got to get done, and you really do have to start maturing things. You have to
100%.
right. You have to get things kind of in the pipeline going. Otherwise, the game can end and you haven't done much. But I love this mechanic of just having like to wash your cards together.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of divisive, but for me, it's like that's actually very thematic.
Yes.
It's
100%.
very thematic. So if you're talking about there's no thematic heroes, I'm like, this is as thematic as you get because some stuff can come out good, some things can come out bad. But there's also a way to prepare for that as well.
Mhm.
But this game, it's got a really good solo mode too. Yeah, it's a really nice. It's a nice high quality product. Yeah, and I hope they go back to it. I really do. I hope they just keep adding to it.
Well, they already have. They
I
already
think
have
they are.
some new expansion at
Two-
PAX, new little mini expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was the one they had. What
Yeah.
they already had, they just came with the Kickstarter. But like, I'm down for more of that game. I mean, I like Scotch or two, so it
Right?
kind of hits me where I'm at.
It is a cool game. I'm not
but-
even a big drinker, but I
Yeah.
love that theme. We had this what felt like a long time ago.
No,
now.
we had
Yeah.
like a long time ago. I played,
But that one just missed my
Mine too.
top 10.
Mine
yeah,
too.
that's a really good game, folks. That,
All right.
that, like in a even
Yeah.
retail version, that's another thing. It's just a nice, really high quality game.
My number 3 is the White Castle from Devere. This was one that we played at 2-player where I didn't love it at 2-player because it does kind of, there's like a dice stacking mechanism that is just like completely cut out.
Still
And
liked it though. I think
but
it
see,
too.
like the thing is, like we played it at 2, and I was like, I feel like there's something missing. But I liked what it was doing enough, and I was thinking hard enough about it that I was like, I'd even said, I kind of want to try this again at a higher player count, but I don't know if I will. And then I left that day, And then it just was like, it stuck in my mind. I just kept thinking about White Castle. I'm like, how? Because like one of the things that we felt like when we were done was like, how do you get points? We struggled. Like we didn't really understand.
I still feel that way, by the way.
But I kept thinking about, I was like, how do you get points? I was like, well, if you kind of like, maybe if we go this angle, if you try to get these or like focus on these things or get gardeners earlier, like whatever. My mind was just like spinning on like, how do I play White Castle better? And then when I came back to playing it again, I was like, okay, now I've got it. And it's starting to click. And then also, this is one that really did benefit from me playing it so many times because I've played so many different games and they've all been so drastically different. Not because of just how you draft your starting setup, but also the board itself is ridiculously different every time you play. There's these gardener cards that give you like ongoing effects that'll trigger every round. They're always different. There's these knights that you put out, or warriors that you put out into the training field. They trigger bonuses that are always different.
Yeah, those bonuses can be wildly
and they
different.
can be wildly different. Some of them, sometimes they just give you resources, and sometimes they give you extra actions. So evaluating how worth it is it to go get a garden spot? How worth it is it to put a warrior in the highest warrior spot? And you can just see these combos like, oh, if I put a warrior here, I get an action. I get to choose any of these actions. There happens to be a card face up that gives me steal, which I need to put more warriors out. And you kind of feed into that. And then somebody realizes you're doing that. And then they go take that card away so you can't trigger that ability anymore. And there's just like a whole lot of different ways to find combos. And since the cards which make up the actions can change, as players move up the castle, they can take these cards and put them in their own little private board. And then new cards come out. You might lose access to some of the actions you were really hammering in. And then lastly, there's 3 colors of dice in the game, and you're putting out these little chits. Sometimes you might end up with 2 chits of the same color in one space. And if you match that die, you get to take 2 actions instead of just 1. And so those are going to change every game as well. So it really is, like more than anything else I've played in a long time, a drastically different game state every time you start playing.
So wait. Why haven't I played this game?
Yeah.
I'm like, why haven't I
How did this get to
probably
number
really
3
like it.
and I
No.
haven't played this at all this year?
So we're gonna probably play this after.
I actually was just thinking because I knew the two of you hadn't played it, and
Yeah.
this is not on my top 10. I do like the game, but it wasn't up there for me.
It really worked for
But
me.
I was just thinking as he
This
was
is-
describing
Yeah.
it, boy, Emily and Jeremy will
And
really
it just
like
this is one of
game.
those ones where I strategically cut it out of our Essen tourney thing, and I just I'm really excited about it. I finally had it explained to me at PAX U, and I got a copy, and I'm dying to play
Yeah.
it.
It's a really
Yeah,
satisfying
because
game.
Also, super snappy game.
Yeah.
Ooh, I
This
like
is
that.
not
I mean,
a long game.
it has to
Well,
be.
you
you
get-
It has to
get
be.
9
You only get 9
actions.
turns.
You get 9 turns,
get
so
9
you got to
turns.
do the best.
Unless you get those extra ones.
Yeah,
Right.
Which
Yeah.
might not be. You get some games where
That's true.
none of the bonuses are extra
Yeah.
actions.
The
And then-
poster said, he said, sometimes you may have to take an anticlimactic get that resource.
Yeah.
He's like, but the next turn you get 3 things firing off at
Yeah,
once.
it's
like,
great.
yeah.
Ooh, that's exciting.
My number 3 has been mentioned multiple times, so I won't take too much time on it, but it is The Witcher Old World. This is
It's
easily...
number 3.
it is
Wow, I
number
thought it was
three.
gonna be
You were
number
hot.
1.
You were so hot on this
I
game.
really thought it was gonna
Well,
be number
David was
1.
hot on this game in a way that I haven't seen on a lot of games.
He
so this
would
does make
not
sense.
stop
I
talking.
was
about
like,
this
David,
game.
with all these
He's
miniatures
just
around
like-
him. I was like, well, geez,
I
look
know.
at him.
This game is really great. Like I said earlier, the fact that it takes what is a very fun narrative experience, and you have to allow yourself. If you're not someone who's going to enjoy that, I get it. But and not just because Brian was reading them, but every time we've read them, getting into those stories, and just like The Witcher, the video game, you don't ever know what the right decision is on a lot of those stories. It can
Yeah.
make sound like, oh, I'll be the good guy, I'll do that. And nope, that bit you.
Yeah, right.
Bad. Which is fun, and it's if you've ever played any of the games or understand the IP, it feels very much like that. And you combine that all with the fact that it is a really interesting deck building game as it relates to using your cards not only for the combat, but also using those cards to move around the map and explore is really cool. That game came together in such a really fantastic way, and Ryan touched on this. There's the sheer amount of content in that game is mind-boggling. I haven't come close to touching all the elements that Ryan has in that game, but yeah, the co-op, all those things are still there waiting to be played. And The minis.
Oh, so many minutes. Yeah.
My number 3 has also been mentioned multiple times, and that is Apiary.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. So
Apiary higher
Wow,
than
you
Nucleum.
really love that
Interesting.
game.
I
like
do.
that. Oh, okay.
It's hard because like I was giving you guys grief about not having Nucleum go further in the bracket, but technically Apiary
Yeah, that's
did
true.
beat
Yes.
it on my list.
Yeah.
And the reason it made it past it is because it's just fun. I just
Mhm.
like I have a lot of fun playing it.
Yeah.
Every turn I'm getting to do something, and even when people knock me off, it's a good thing because my things are leveling up.
Right.
I feel like it has that strategy level I'm looking for in a game, but it also has an accessibility where like I can really be down for anything, and people will say like, "Hey, you want to play Apiary?" And I'm like, "Yes." You know, it's
Yeah.
I don't have to be in the mood for it.
Right.
I don't have to be at like a certain place. I just know at any time I'll probably want to play Apiary. And I love games like that where at any time it's just going to be fun to play.
I think
So,
this game this year is one of those games where it's a good example of where you don't have to be too innovative to
exactly.
to have fun. And I think what we're trying to do, I'm starting to see a trend of this, is people want so much innovation and they forget like, what don't you just want to have fun?
sometimes you just want
Yes.
to have fun. You
It's
just want
like
to have fun at the table.
I'm not looking for every game to impress me. As a matter of
Right.
fact, I think all of us in our first world hobbies have enough games stacked
Yes.
over here.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily going to find the new, new game with the newest mechanics in there. We just hope they're interesting and fun.
Yes.
And I think Apiary is one of those games.
Yeah. That's
Take
well said.
strip away stoneware, strip away all that stuff, and I just think you have a solid game. And
Yeah,
a solid
exactly.
game at baseline.
Also, it's really worth mentioning. We haven't mentioned this yet. First time designer too.
Yeah,
Like,
Donnie Vogelman.
What a like.
Donnie Vogelman's first
man.
game.
oh wow.
I'm
Yeah,
excited to see
like
more.
Wow.
that's a home run.
Yes,
Wow.
for sure. For sure.
Jeremy, what's your number? Was this 3?
3.
Three.
Number 3.
Okay. So this is an interesting game simply because I don't like these style of games at all. And I totally flipped the switch on this one. It's an excellent game. It's Earthborn Rangers.
Oh.
I'm
It
glad
is
it got mentioned.
An absolutely amazing game. I love slick card games. I love when card games, like every card feels like it has purpose. And in this game, it is an LCG, but like you're in like this kind of mechanical future, and you're really just going about. Like you're going on a walkabout. Like you're just kind of going and doing stuff. And the world is interacting with you. You're kind of building a deck for the world wherever you're going and kind of where you came from. And you're just going out for days. That's it.
No, that really is it.
That's really it.
But
But you're building this deck. You
it's
get to build.
persistent.
You get to right. It's persistent. So you get to build who you are and like your background and like kind of who you want to be in a sense. Like I don't know. And then you're putting the cards in there and they kind of represent your mindset in a sense. And then you go out and I can't explain. All I can say is that the
Wow.
world develops around you. You develop and like it's just got a nice story. The story is
Yeah.
like light. It's a light feeling. It's not so dark and heavy.
Yeah, it's got
It's
a
just-
very positive outlook.
Yeah, it's just got a very positive. And I think if I remember this correctly, like the designer was just like this reminds me of back in the day when he went to like his grandparents' house and he just like would go walk.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And like his imagination would run wild and like this is that game.
I'm,
That's
I'm
very
glad
cool.
you did
Yeah.
put it because
And
it.
it's just like one of my least favorite things. Like
That type of
else,
game.
Yeah,
like
type of
those
game.
types of games. And I was just like, this is so good.
It
That's
works
impressive.
so well.
I want all of it. Like when I was playing it that weekend, I was just like, I want all of this. And I just set it away and I was like, I'm going to give this like another 2 weeks of my time and just play it.
I'm really glad. It almost made my cut, but I just haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't dug into it enough. But like we live streamed it, even, and all we really were doing during the live stream was like delivering muffins or whatever.
Yeah, that's
And like it was like this. It
Yeah.
felt so like we're just exploring the city and like talking to people. People are coming up and talking to us, and like
yeah.
you can interact with animals, and you like there's just a lot happening. It's just a
Interesting
really
stuff that you
chill
do
game.
with cards. So if you like or you did not like Arkham Horror, so when you do skill checks, you're gonna be using the cards, and they have it like, and I should explain this. I'm sorry. There's cards near you, like in a kind of a step away, and then further away, and you have like weather conditions that also take place, and you're trying to interact with those cards through playing cards that kind of represent what you're good at and what you're not good at.
I
You
see.
kind of have these super tech kit stuff.
Mhm.
And you may have a companion. One person has companions, things of that nature. But the world literally interacts with you
That's
and
cool.
it develops
Yeah.
as you go along. And like I said, the story is really well written. You just get lost in the world, and you're going to see this specifically amongst people who are solo gamers. It's going to be in a lot of their
Yeah.
top tens,
Yeah.
no question. And I think those people are just like me. They weren't like over the moon with LCGs. That's a testament to this game. It's very good.
That's a good
I
point.
do want to say one more thing, because it did almost make it to my list. But when I played with Nelson, and Nelson unfolded the map, and he's like, "We can go anywhere."
You can go.
I'm like, "What do you mean? Like the quest wants us?" He's like, "You can go anywhere. Just
Go.
go. Just
Yeah,
just
you don't.
follow
Yeah,
the-
you
just
get
go."
quests. You just like, no, I'll just go this way.
Yeah,
That's what I did.
it's
I was
crazy.
Just like,
Funny.
yeah,
It's just like
you can do this. No, you can just go that way.
That's
Yeah,
so
so it's
funny.
really
Yeah.
Ambitious
yeah,
anyway.
very very ambitious. And
Yeah,
it
it's not
seems
game
to
over
really
just because you do that. There's
pull
no
it off.
ticking time bomb. You just
Right.
go that way. I don't care. I'm gonna
That's
go that way.
cool.
All right, number 2 for
Yeah.
me.
Number 2.
I've been hype on this game all year, so this should not be a surprise. It's Barcelona from Board and Dice.
That does
Yes,
make
yeah,
sense.
This is
Check.
another game
Yeah.
like Apiary that is just pure fun. I remember the first time I played this game, I played with some friends of mine, and one of the first turn, he did so much, and he scored like 25 points. And we all looked at each other like, are we playing this right? Are we like, he's already at 25
You can
points.
have big turns.
But you can get up to like 400 points in this game, and like we were all doing these big turns and just scoring a ton of points. And like the theme of the game is very cool. The rebuilding of Barcelona, or like
Urbanization.
building the expansion of Barcelona, which is like actually what this expansion looks like today.
Mhm.
It looks just like the board when it's done. It's really cool how much thought they put into this game from a thematic standpoint. They filled the rule book with all these like
Yeah.
historical details, which I like because it helps you understand why you're doing these actions.
Mhm.
But you're putting these streets down and you're putting these tiles down and you're building out these tram lines and like all this cool stuff is happening. But you're doing like 2 or 3 actions per turn.
Yeah.
And every action is then going to maybe even give you another action. So you could be doing like
Mhm.
3 or 4 actions a turn or 5 actions. And then you could be building on top of that. And you're just scoring. You could be down by like 40 points and then just have a massive turn and score like 50 points in one turn.
Yeah.
Especially as you get towards the end of the game, the point values go up and they escalate and you're earning a ton of points. But there's still a lot of like really meaty decisions. There's a lot to
Mhm.
balance. You're getting these public works buildings. You're balancing whether or not you want to support Serta, who was the designer, and go up his
Mhm.
track to score some big multipliers. Or if you want to go like the more modernist route and contribute to the Sagrada La Familia, which is there in Barcelona. It's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
the components
It
are
is.
cool. It's pretty to look at. And it is one of the most satisfying games
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
that
agree.
I've played.
I will say too that like so I taught this game to 4 new people who hadn't played it before, and they were like, "Oh, but don't you want to play?" And I was like, "No, I will have fun just watching all
Uh-huh.
4 of you play because it's that satisfying where you're teaching it and you're like, oh, you could do this or you could do that, and there's so many like they're all good options, so it's not like any of them are punishing, but it's just like." But I want the best option.
Yeah.
So you're like, should I do this and this, or should I do that and that? And then it's fun to talk through it and to see where people go, how they can score big points. So even just teaching it and watching new players play is very fun. So this game is a fun game.
Yeah, that is true. That is one of the things I get a lot of satisfaction out of
Yes.
in games in general. And one of the things I get from Apiary, which is my number 2.
Yeah, surprise.
This game, we've said it all. In fact, this is the one game that we've all
We all
talked
said
about
it.
so
Mhm.
far.
Oh, wow, that's true.
This game is just fun. First time we played it, I said this several times before. I paused several times and went, "Wow, this is really good. This is doing something special." And Emily touched on this earlier. I want to underscore. I feel that I can't believe that Connie Vogelman didn't take everything in a game that could feel a little bad and design it such that it didn't.
right.
Mhm.
So everything that you might come across while playing any board game where you're like, oh, that kind of sucks. There's some silver lining here
Yes.
that's so silver that it actually feels maybe even better than
I
the
don't
bad part
think
about
I've
it.
had any like real feel bad moments in that game.
No,
ever.
there are no feel
Yeah.
bad moments because I think it's been designed such that even the feel bad moments feel good. We've said this a lot of times, and we've kind of touched on it here today. This game takes I'm going to go here, and then it makes you go, come at me. Like, let's see. I'm going here. I want you to come here
Right.
so that I get my 4B.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I realized in my first play is I'd expected, this is a game where you usually place your workers out and then you're going to recall at one point. And you do want to do that, but I wasn't recalling. And I was realizing how much fun I was having breaking that system.
Yes.
Where it was like, oh, I keep getting bounced back and my first round effectively is going on forever, and I don't have to recall.
But sometimes you want to some strategies you want to
some
recall.
strategies
Some of the
you
exact
want to.
opposite.
It's
Yeah, you want to
interesting.
recall more and more
Yeah,
often.
100%.
to the farming.
It's just interesting how that plays out.
It is a really, really
Yeah.
fun game, and honestly, it is very deserving of being on a lot of top 10
For
lists
sure.
here at the end of the year, which
For
is
sure.
why I think you're going to see it there.
My number 2 game is Evacuation.
I
so-
figured that would be somewhere.
Yeah. It's very close to the top. And honestly, when I say it's my number 2, it feels bad because it feels like it should be number 1
Wow, okay.
with how I feel about it. But obviously, you're going to see the number 1, and that's the reason it's the number 2.
Okay.
Evacuation, we're evacuating Earth and going to Mars. And so
Oh,
you
I
gotta,
see Earth. I see. Now I get it.
Yes,
Oh, so it's Earth.
I hate a space theme. I really don't like a space theme, so
But
it
you
didn't
like
win
Earth.
any
We
points.
know we
like to
like
stay
Earth
on Earth.
themes.
I like to stay on Earth, nature and animals on Earth. But we're going to space in this one. But somehow it just really feels like a thematic experience where I have this stuff I'm building up. I have all this stuff on Earth already. And then I'm going to go through the decline on Earth while I'm trying to push it over to Mars. And I'm trying to build everything up there. But I have to do it at just the right time. Because as my satellites and everything are moving to orbit around Mars instead, if I don't have my production on Mars, then...
Is it Mars?
Is it Mars?
I don't know.
Oh, is it
New
Mars?
world.
It might be
The
Mars.
new world. The new
It's
world.
a new world.
It's a
The
new,
new world.
planet.
It's a
New
terraformed
world.
planet. It
New
could be
world.
Mars.
Yeah, I'm just thinking Mars because all the space games.
It
We've
has
already-
to be Mars. We've terraformed
We've
Mars.
already
We've
terraformed
terraformed
Mars.
We've
Now
been
we're
on Mars.
evacuating
It's
to
always
it.
Mars.
Board game jokes.
Who knows? It's a space game again, but it is a lot of fun. And that's, again, for me to get past that theme and to really feel like the tightness of the game, of which actions you're taking and which resources you're using at which time, felt so cool.
Yeah.
I really, really
It's very
enjoyed
tight.
it. And there are different ways you can play it. So you can play it with like the advanced mode or the base mode. You can play it as a race, or
Yep.
you can play it a set number of turns.
Yep.
There's just so much going on here that I just feel like in awe of its elegance. I really appreciate what it does.
Are you
as a
sure
game.
it's not your number
I
one?
know.
Yeah, no, it
it's like
seems
as
like
I'm
it. I'm
thinking
so
about
gonna
it,
be
I'm like,
surprised,
dang,
yeah.
but this game's so
All right, we'll cut
freaking
it. We'll come back.
good.
We'll come back. No, I really thought highly of that game through one play, but I wanted to play it again. I just didn't get it back to getting to play
Well,
it.
you
But
have
I
to
really,
play it again.
really enjoyed it. Then I want to know how people feel about it.
Yeah.
It seems like there were some reviewers that have pushback on it because of like the two ways you could play it in a sense,
Sure.
and some of the cards. So I think it's just a lot
Yeah.
for some people.
It is a lot of games.
Yeah, it's a
game.
lot. It's not a light game, and I feel like your first game, you're going to be spending so much time getting your head wrapped around it, and then also depending whether you play it as a race
Yeah.
or you
Yes.
play it as that.
I like
or you
the
have some
points,
advanced
by the way.
modules in there. There's
It's
a lot of stuff you can
mind-blowing
take.
How much game
Right,
it is,
it's a
honestly.
lot of stuff, and once I remember someone saying that they don't know what it wants to be. I was like, no, I think that you can choose what you want it to be, how much you want it to be.
Yes.
You can put whatever things you think you're in there. Now, if you go full advanced all the way in that game, you probably set yourself up for something there.
Yeah, it's a different experience.
Because even for an advanced gamer or someone who plays heavy games and you play sushi, like this one it's going to test your limits a little bit.
100%.
So I would say take the training wheels a little bit on that one
I would too.
and give it a go. For me, the second game was another game. Wasn't like I didn't know what to do with it simply because the cover was kind of bleh. It's got a big coin on the cover. It's kind of
Oh, okay.
it's kind of a boring cover, but I usually try not to judge a book by its cover, a board game by its cover. So that would be Kutnahora. Kutnahora
Yeah.
is about Kutnahora. It's about how it was built, and that game kind of sort of walks you through it, but you're developing the town based on how you want to. So you have this mining area, you have this place where you're going to build Kutnahora, and if you want to add event cards, you can, which is one of the cool things about it. Kind of walks you through the history of it and some of the things that happen. Because what you're essentially trying to do is dig out coal to raise the cost or the need for certain resources. So as you raise the need for resources, there's these two boards that represent the people and also the mining. So you're going to have these little pieces that you're moving left and right, up and down, and taking cards out to represent what's affecting the market. Some people will affect how rights are built, so that you're building the city, so you can have more expensive things. Then there's patricians that attract these beautiful chapels and different types of things that they help your scoring by adjacency, but that you don't get to own them, but they attract a lot of people. So you're going through people cards like crazy. And the more people that arrive, the more need there is for food. And everybody has certain things that they're good at, and those are the only type of buildings they can build, and they're all scoring multipliers as well. So it's a little bit of like there's a little bit of area control, but there's almost like a little bit of like cutthroat zoning.
Interesting.
Like in the real world. Like in the real world.
Zoning.
You know?
Yeah,
But there's zoning. And then like there's also like this element of just timing, of like pouncing on the opportunity of like people needing food and beer.
Yeah.
And apparently per capita, like people in Kunahora drink the most beer.
Wow, that's
So like beer is actually a really big resource in the
Wow.
game. So it's like if you're part of that, it's important, but there's also a way to affect that so it doesn't stay as popular. So it's just a very interesting game. You're creating the experience every game. Like you're creating this version of Kunahora that you want to create in a sense.
Yeah.
Because every faction is going to be different. And they have, I think, 30 cards for different setups for the factions and like 12 cards for the setups for the mines. And they all score different. Like they all set up the game different. So you're not playing the same game.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
and while you're talking about components, I haven't played it, but I
But-
want to say I've read the rules. Maybe the best rule book I've read
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really
all year.
And the
If there's an
iconography
award
is-
for rule books, this one's
Man.
at the top.
Yeah, the iconography is very good and very clear, and they have the best player aid I've had this
I love
year.
that.
Yeah.
Best player aid.
It's a good
Yeah.
start.
Like if you ask me any questions, I'm like, I'm not kidding you. It's on the player. I'm not kidding you. What was that game scoring? I'm not kidding you. It's on the player.
All right, that brings us to our number one games of 2023.
Yes.
Ryan,
If you didn't-
please.
If you didn't figure out mine by omission, my number one game of the year is Nucleum. This is a game that I would actually legitimately call a masterpiece.
Yeah.
This game works on every possible level. I've played it solo. I've played it 2 players going back and forth. I've played it 3 and 4. I've played every player count possible. And I played multiple games with some of those player counts. Every single time I played this game, it has worked for me on the deepest level. Like everything about this game comes together. There's so much I could talk about this game. I won't, because I could talk for an hour about it.
But he won't.
But that
No.
whole action selection system of like, do I tuck the action on my player board to take the action and thus get more income, or do I put the action out on the board and flip it over as a route to connect these cities? Because you have to connect cities, you have to get income, you have to fulfill your objectives, you have to build out your invention, your machine, which Emily touched on the fact that there's like variable player powers, but it's more than that. You have like 8 tiles that you have to earn as you're playing the game, and every time you earn one of these tiles, you get to like activate a part of your machine that's going to give you an ongoing effect, an instant effect, in-game scoring. There's a ton of different stuff that's happening over there, but the real start of the show for me is the in-game scoring mechanic. And this is where you're everything you're doing in the game is collecting you these like power points or achievement points, these little like star things. And every time you rest, you turn them all in. And based on how many you turn in, you get to claim that spot on the in-game scoring track. However, they're divided into sections, and you can only be in each section once.
Yep.
So if you rest the first time with 10 stars, and you only have 12 the next time, you have to drop down to the one below that because you can't put another one. So you have to keep constantly pushing yourself. So you can't just like do everything all at once. You kind of want to stretch things out and space things out. So like after you rest, you have more ways because you're building buildings effectively, empowering them. And again, even that feels very satisfying. But another thing too that Emily touched on is during setup, based on the player count, you're restricting some things, you're blocking off some spots, you're putting different mines, active nuclear plants in different spots. So the game board is going to be very different. And even from the very first move that somebody takes, the game board is going to expand in different ways.
Yes, exactly.
And you are encouraged to work together. If somebody starts building a route, it's maybe beneficial for everybody for that route to be made. Plus, you get points for being in it. Plus, if you manage to get in on that route, it makes those 2 cities part of your network.
Yes.
So there's a lot of motivation to like wait and see. As soon as somebody starts a route, you want to get in there and finish it, or like you start a route and you're like, guys, come on, help! Like I don't want to have to do it both myself because that uses up 2 tiles. So it feels so good, and you feel really like it's a very challenging game, but it makes you feel really smart.
And we're going to stop you there.
That is it. Masterpiece.
This is why I love when the 4 of us get together to do these things like this. And it's different for all of us, but I think Ryan takes the cake at when he's enthusiastic about a game. Imagine a 2nd grade kid after his first trip to the carnival.
Well, that's me about everything I love, man. I get excited about stuff. I'm happy. I want to love stuff, and I want to like when something hits me like Nucleum did. I want everyone to play it.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
He
I
was
want
just.
everyone to play
We
it.
were playing and recording the other day, just the two of us, and he was sitting there and we were talking about our top 10 lists, and he was like, David. Like, he was talking to me. He used my name. He said, David. He goes, Nucleum, I think it's a masterpiece. like he was having a
No,
revelation.
it really is. I mean, well, what cinched it for me was going back and like playing it with people now that are also very good at it, that have played it multiple times, and feeling so much more tension. And then a guy, Dan, who I've been playing with for a while.
He's going on.
A little
I
bit,
know,
sorry.
we didn't end him.
We finally got to play it at 2 players, just me versus him, and like that was an experience unlike anything, like that direct,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
oh, it was so cool. Yeah,
Wow.
it was so
This
good.
was like
If he didn't-
semi-religious experience
It-
here.
No kidding. No kidding.
Elevated.
changed
No, I
man.
loved Nuclear.
Well, I feel maybe not as strongly, but I think just as strongly about my number one. It has been mentioned already. This is The Veil of Eternity. For me, this game is, I think, masterpiece level because it does so many things. It is a lighter game. And I'm finding, as time goes on, I really appreciate these games that are like don't have a ton going on, but give you a nice, interesting thinking experience, kind of like Far Away did. But this one even more so because it works so interestingly. And as you're teaching this game, there's so many little things where new people at the table will go, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh yeah, you can only have 4 tokens as your
I love
currency.
that.
Like, you can't make change. You're using cards in multiple ways. You can sell them off or you can tame them. And there's a limitation on how many cards you can even play based on what round it is. All these sorts of things, not to mention the graphic design and the look of it,
The art is
initially
phenomenal.
gave me Seasons type vibes.
Yeah.
This feels, it's a different game, of course, but in many ways, this feels like it could be like some sort of spin-off second cousin
Yeah.
to the game Seasons in so many respects. Veil of Eternity, I can't
And
recommend
you're
it
right.
enough.
I think it made it. Everyone that's played it put it on their list.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
the-
you're next.
And the fact that I'm still thinking about it, and I'm still thinking about next time, I hope I get these 2 cards. I hope, because I really want to try this combo.
And the thing is, the game you're not going to do well every game.
Yes.
Some
Yeah.
games, those things aren't going to work out. You might get some of these cards like, here's what I think I'm going to do. And then it doesn't happen. But that is one of the reasons I like it most, is it is a very tactical game.
Yeah.
You are like, okay, I better change what's going on
Yes.
because what I thought I was
Yeah.
going to do is not working. Or the one card I wanted to get came out and they took it. So you've got to kind of roll with the punches. And I love problem solving in a tactical way. I really enjoy that in games and everything that
So
I
you're
do.
just saying Arc Nova, but lighter.
A lot
it's-
lighter.
it's-
Yeah, a lot lighter.
Come on, I mean,
I
it's-
can't wait to hear what you think. I mean, we've already
Yeah.
overhyped it maybe
You
for
did.
you.
You've done
It's
it.
been overhyped.
It-
been a little-
it's over.
Jeremy
no.
loves slick card games.
I do. I like slick card
Oh,
games.
she's
So-
using your words against
Yeah,
you.
I like
He
slick
has
card
to
games.
like it.
It just seems like
he
a
has
game.
to like it.
Just seems like a game I like.
That's
yeah.
my number one.
I cannot wait to see what beat Evacuation here.
Yeah.
Yes.
What beat Evacuation? Yeah, what could possibly beat a masterpiece, an elegant,
Okay.
heavy game
okay.
that I love? The only thing that could beat it is a fun deduction game, and that is Fiction.
Oh, wow. Number
How about
one.
What
that?
can you do?
How
What can you
about
do?
that?
Wow.
Yeah, just put a deduction game in your catalog
I
publishers.
know,
It'll get her number one every time.
Also, Lost Species, I didn't play this year. So just to be clear, that is why it's not on my list, because I do really want to
You
play
didn't
it.
play Lost Species?
I didn't
No.
play it
Because
yet.
you didn't play it when I had it here.
I didn't
Yeah.
play it.
Oh, man.
So now
It's
I'm
really good
upset.
too.
It's
so
not
very
on my
good.
list.
It's very good.
Just put it on your list anyway. You'll love it. I know. Go look
Fiction
back.
and Lost Species are my number one.
All things deduction.
Fiction was
But
so
no,
much fun, though.
Yeah.
Fiction is
it's
so,
so much
much fun. I love this game. The thing, honestly, that I like most about it, so it's like, if you haven't played it, it's like Wordle, but you have one person has the word.
The librarian.
The librarian, and they are going to lie once each round. So it's kind of like Wordle with a little bit more of mastermind in it too, and it's fun. It can be hard to keep track of what you're doing if you're the librarian,
Yes.
so do
Yeah.
be clear on that.
She's looking at me.
I'm looking at everyone,
Yeah,
actually.
That's true.
But my favorite part of it is that I just love the way it makes you feel when you get it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You feel
Yeah.
so smart. You're like, oh my gosh, they've been lying about that T the whole game,
Yeah.
and I finally uncovered it, and that's not what it is, and it's this word, and can you believe it? And
But
I
it feels
love
good
those
to
big
also
moments.
be like, it also feels good to have the tension of, oh, they may have caught me. They may have.
Yes.
You're watching
Yeah.
somebody
Yes.
kind of figure it out. You're like, please don't figure that
Or
out.
the
Yes.
opposite.
They only have 2 guesses. Or they're like,
You're like,
oh,
run out
I
of
figured
time,
out
run out
you're
of time.
live from the 3rd round. And you're like, oh, no.
Yes.
You know, they start canceling stuff out. And you're
Yes.
like, no,
Or when
please
you see
don't
them go
get
the
it.
opposite, and they're like, you're watching, you're like, they have no
have
idea.
no
Not even
idea.
And they
close.
seem so convinced, so you're like, I'm just going to
They
feed
were,
into
they were
this.
so close, and it's just like, oh, yeah, please make the worst argument ever.
I forget
Yes.
what the word was, but we were one away. I was the librarian. And Alicia literally
Oh.
was one letter away from it. And she said something out loud. And I was like, oh my God. And there was 30 seconds left on the clock.
I
And
remember
she
that.
knew, like, they knew what the other letter had to be in the word, but they just weren't thinking of it because it'd been so long. And then when it's time stopped and I told them what the word is, they were like, are you kidding me? We were so close.
Elisa, she probably used different words than that.
I do think she
but
had her
Alicia-
own choice
yeah, probably.
vocabulary
Yeah,
for that
for
this
moment.
sure.
channel is a fan.
For
But,
sure.
that tension, love that. Love it. So fiction made my number 1.
That game was so close to number 1.
Yeah.
I'm glad it made
The
our
top 10.
list
I
for
made
sure.
our
It was one of the
I'd
most
forgotten
fun
about
games
that.
I had.
When I was
played
thinking my
this
list, that one was the
Oh,
one
yeah.
that like kept at the top the whole time. I was like, I can't put it down at all for
Yeah.
anything.
This
Fair.
game this was one of those that just stayed on my table. I just kept playing it over and over again. And I was just like, this is probably the best year I've played at that time. So I'm still thinking of it now, and I'm like, yeah, this is the best year I played this year. And
You
that's
saying Euro?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Darwin's Journey.
Oh,
Whoa!
Wow.
That's the
Nice.
best Euro I played this year.
Wow. Yeah.
That's another Euro that feels thematic.
Mhm.
Like you're going and you're taking record of animals, things you've seen, species you've seen. It's got some really like heavy interaction stuff going on here because whoever places in spots first kind of affects how everything else goes. Money is tight.
Oh, it's
it's super tight.
It's so tight.
Super tight. I love that. You're kind of building up your board and you have different things going on with these color marks. It's got a really interesting system of how the species kind of come out and whatnot. I'm sorry, how the species are recorded and things of that nature. You got this whole boat. You got this whole island thing going on where you have 3 different islands and you're trying to go through there. And it's kind of a race in that sense. It's kind of a race of how far you go ahead. It's got that thematic adventure thing to it. So the more modules you add, the more adventure it feels.
Mm.
There's actually even like an event deck that goes in there. That game is absolutely impressive as far as, once again, component wise.
Yeah,
I
it's
feel like
a
you're
nice
getting your
looking
money's
game.
worth. You're like, wow. But if you do track down this game and you like it, what I did was I immediately played, I think, once or twice, and I just got rid of it and found the collector's edition. Like I was just like,
okay.
Yeah.
I want the best version of this game.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Carnegie for me. Like I just played Carnegie twice, and I was like, I want the best version of this game. But you can find the collector's edition. I would say if it really hits you, those extra modules, now you can actually buy those modules extra.
Oh,
Okay.
you can.
You can. So I would just suggest trying to track those down, especially the one with the extra adventures, because there's another board that's heavier with more locations on it.
Oh wow. I haven't
Yeah,
played that
there's
one.
another part. There's another kind of like, I think you put the board on there or something like that.
Wow.
But it's got more stuff to it. That game is excellent.
Yeah,
It's
it was on
absolutely
my short
excellent.
list.
Especially if you like medium heavyweight, a little bit more towards the heavy side. This is
Oh.
is it. Like this is it. They have a very medium weight version,
Mhm.
and then you can take it up a notch. Excellent game.
Yeah, we just got a
Excellent.
copy here, and I haven't played it yet. This was definitely what I was thinking was going to be one of my blind spots
Yeah.
once I play it.
Yeah.
Although I'm interested to hear that it's heavy, so I'll
Oh,
have
it's
to see
very
how
heavy.
it lands.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's
It's heavy.
and the
Oh.
Yeah.
choices you are making, like you are straight up. There's some things that you're investing in, and you're just like, I don't know if this is going to be big this round. People are going to quit on it. I can't remember. Like there's little marks that you're going for.
Yeah.
And you're trying to decide you're going
The
to
researching the different animals.
Then you're trying to like decide, do you want to add pieces to the board? So
Yeah.
you're thinking like, oh, do I want these to trigger? I'm trying to entice people to go there. And it's like, there's just a lot. And then there's these race to get these species because there's also triggers and how those get points. And it's just, that game is excellent.
You're just sitting there thinking,
the game is
It
Yeah, that's
sounds
good.
like we have a lot of games to
Yeah,
play
for
this
sure.
weekend
Yes,
now.
for sure.
So we're going to push stop on this recording, but that was our top 10 games of 2023 from all of us. We're probably going to have some follow-up videos where we talk about maybe some of those blind spots, maybe some of the honorable mentions,
Yes.
things
There's
like
quite
that.
a few. But...
There are quite a few. This year, like
Yeah,
we said
for
from
sure.
the start, was a big year for games. Let us know, though, in the comments below what you think about our lists.
What's your list?
What was your list? What are some of the games that you think like, wait, how could you guys not have this on
Yeah.
any of your
Yes.
lists? That's crazy.
There was a lot that I felt bad not having on there.
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
I started
Yeah.
with 19 and had to
I
whittle
started
it down.
With, I had 20.
There are games that are sort of sequels. There's expansions that were so
Yeah.
good.
New
Yeah.
deluxe
Yes,
editions.
deluxe
There's
edition.
so
I mean,
much this year.
Like the fact that
It's a lot
Castles
this
of
year.
Burgundy Deluxe is not on my list is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's
How
criminal.
dare you?
That's
I-
crazy.
That was on someone's list.
Yeah,
but that was.
Yeah.
Anyway, until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.